This is Scott the Fix-It Guy. Our goal with our videos is to empower you to be able to do the repairs on your own and save a whole lot of money and also get that great feeling of having fixed it by yourself. Today we have a Bosch access washer that is not spinning. There's no motor activity. It won't agitate. It won't go to spin. And there's two causes. The most likely is the motor brushes have worn out. They're really easy to replace. Could also be the door lock, the thing that holds the door shut, is no longer locking, and that's also really easy to replace too. So we're going to kind of cover both of them. This is a really nice new Milwaukee driver that one of the viewers, Steve, was very nice to have just sent over to our house. Really appreciate that. Testing it out for the first time today. It seems like it has a lot of torque, a lot of power, and really good product. I've been using Milwaukee for many years now, and they're really tough. So when we set it for spin, we hear the drain going, but nothing's happening. So it's probably these motor brushes need to be replaced. These are ones you can get from Amazon, and they're really inexpensive, and again, pretty easy to pop in. One thing you could check though is when you set it for agitate or when you set it for spin, if you're able to just easily open the door, like the door doesn't stay locked, then you know for sure that it's a door lock issue. So in this case, it should be agitating right now, but there's no motor activity and the door just pops open. And this is when it's supposed to be spinning, the door can just pop open, and that shouldn't be. So if that happens to you, then you need to replace this part, the door lock. And that's also really easy to replace, actually even easier than the motor brushes. We're going to go over the motor brushes here real quick first, and then at the end of the video we'll show how to easily do the door lock. Both of these just take you a few minutes. So we unplugged it, we're pulling out the drain, we move the washer out where we can get to it easier, sped up the camera a little bit, but we're removing these torque screws on the back panel. I think there's probably 8 of them, and once you get them out, you can just lift up on the back panel and it'll come right off. It's very easy. That'll give you access to the motor. We do have to remove the motor, but there's just 2 bolts holding it in. So pull off the access panel, and then we're going to grab the belt and we're going to pull it toward us as we spin this big pulley, and the belt will come right off. It's very easy. So the belt breaking on these machines is really rare, and if you're not getting agitation, it could be the belt, but it's more likely it's just these motor brushes. We're pulling these modular connectors off of the back of the motor. You have to pinch in and pull back, and we're going to remove these 2 bolts. Trying out this new wrench works. This new Milwaukee driver works really good. These are usually torqued in pretty hard, and they came right out easily. So I'm going to use a standard head screwdriver now, and I'm going to push from the back between the tub and the motor to kind of get this thing moving, because it will come off, but you need to get a little leverage probably to start it. And once I got that moving forward by about 1/4 inch, now I can just grab it and pull the motor toward me by about 2 inches, and now I can slide the motor out. I'm going to slide it under the tub, slide it out, and now I have really good access. And now it's easy to get to the motor brushes. I'm going to take some needle nose pliers and pull off the spade connector that's hooked on, bringing power to the motor brush. Once I get that off, what I'll do is take a little sharp device, or you could take a standard head screwdriver and just push this towards you, and then you can pull the old motor brush out. This one's only about maybe a little less than 1/2 inch, but it should be about 1.5 inches. You can see the difference there. So that's an old one and then the new one. And when I put the new one in, I got to consider what angle. You can kind of see how we're doing it in the video. We're coming in at a slight angle, and the front of the brush has an angle on it too. If you get that wrong, it'll still work, but it'll just take a little longer to break in. So we're going to push the spring now down into the motor brush housing. So I push the motor brush in as far as it'll go, and I'm using my fingers to push the spring down into that motor brush housing. Just take your time. This is a little awkward because the spring is going to want to pop out. So you have to kind of push it down in there and then use your other hand to keep it in as you push more and more of the spring into the housing. Just take your time. And this dust I have on my fingers here in the video is just the carbon from the motor brushes, from the old brushes. It won't hurt you. It's just carbon, but it does make your hands dirty. So we're pushing that spring down in there, and now we're going to push this upper part of the spade connector into the slot. We're going to push it away from us, and we're going to push the front of it down into the front of the slot, and then we're going to push this spade connector toward us to lock it in. It's a pretty cool way that it works. So you push it in toward the back, push it down, and then bring it towards you. And then I like to put something behind it, like a standard head screwdriver, to kind of give me more leverage to push it toward me. And once I have that, I'll put the spade connector back on to bring power to the motor brush. Give you a little more of a close-up look. I think the important thing is, if you're doing this for the first time, just be patient, keep trying, and you will get it. So we got that spade connector on. We're going to flip over the motor and do the other side. It's the same procedure. Use the those pliers to pry off the old spade connector. And now we can push in on this part in the front and then pull toward us to release the front of it, and then we can lift it out. That's the old one. Not much left. Here's the new one. Just trying to show you the angle that we have to go in. I'm going to push it in, and then I'm going to use something to push the carbon brush in as far as possible. Then I'll feed the spring in there using a standard head screwdriver to help me. If your vision's not that great, it's really wise to do this maybe outdoors where you have a lot of light, or to make sure you're wearing glasses, or maybe even reading glasses that magnify it so you can see better what's going on. Basically need a lot of light. Just making sure I get the spring to feed down into that housing, just doing it a little bit at a time. And then I'll make sure that the the copper wire is fed all the way down in there too. And then I'll push the top of that spade connector into the slot, and then I'll push the part nearest to me down into the front of the slot, and then I'll use my standard head screwdriver to push on the back of it to lock it in. So we can get a little more of a close-up here. Okay, now I'm going to push it in from the back to lock it. There we go. And now I can put the spade connector back on. And that's pretty much it. All we got to do now is just reinstall the motor. So I got that in position. I'm going to lift it up and then push it back by about ½ an inch so it locks in. It'll be held in on 4 points, 2 in the back, 2 in the front. I'm going to put the modular connector back in. I'm going to push in really hard to make sure it locks in all the way. I'll put on this little ground spade connector here below it. Make sure that's all the way on, and then I'll use my new tool, which I really like, that Steve gave me, and I'll lock in those 2 screws. I'm going to put the belt back on. I'm going to put the rib side against the small motor pulley and feed it onto the big pulley, and then I'll just turn the big pulley toward me and that'll feed the belt right on. Really easy and quick to do. And then I'll spin it a couple times. Also spin it the other direction too to make sure that belt's not going to come off, because during the machine's operation it spins both ways. Got it. We're going to put the service panel back on. I'm going to lift it up a little bit to get it on its catches, and then all we got to do is add those screws back in. So these screws are a little bit different. These are bigger, and then the ones that go on the perimeter on the top and bottom are a different color. They're brass and they're a little smaller. These are all driven with Torx bits. So if you do need to change the door lock, you just use a standard head screwdriver and pry off this spring clamp, and then you got to pull the boot off to give you some room to work. Take out these two Torx screws, and then you can grab the door lock, pull it towards you, and there's two modular connectors you have to pinch. It's a little bit hard to get to them. You have to pinch and pull them off. You can then take the old door lock off. You know the door lock's bad, that if during spin that you can just open the door, you know that door lock has failed and it's time to replace it. So here is the new door lock that you can get online. So we got the new one in position. We're going to line up the opening, and then we're going to hold it while we put in the two Torx screws. So 1, 2, and then we're going to just put the boot back on and use our thumbs to feed that back over that ridge, and then we're going to lubricate the spring clamp with some detergent and then put that back over to hold on the front of the boot. Sometimes it might be good to get a friend to help you as you put on the spring clamp, because you almost need to have 4 hands. And that's it. And you will have solved your spin and motor problem, and you'll be back in action. Hopefully this has helped you with your Bosch and you get it working. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe when you get a chance, and we'll send you some more repair videos. Thanks again.